Today I'm going to be reviewing the Renaissance expansion to Dominion board game. And if you watch my other reviews, you know how this works. I'm going to give a letter grade to a bunch of different aspects of the expansion, whether it's mechanics that it introduces or emphasizes, some components that are shared across expansions that we kind of like to compare to one another, best cards, worst cards, most fun cards, least fun cards, and then a little bit of fluff at the end. You can weight those grades into a single number to represent the expansion at the end. Renaissance, for some context, is the 12th expansion. It's released in November of 2018. The week it was released, I had a midterm. I stayed up till midnight every night watching the previews. I didn't do any studying, did perfectly on the midterm, so if you're one of these people who thinks that they need to, start doing Dominion for school, don't. Doesn't matter. Anyways, has 25 kingdom cards in it, so, smaller expansion, that aspect, but it also has 20 projects, new mechanic, 5 artifacts, another new mechanic, coffers and villagers mats, which have coin tokens which go on them to represent coffers and villagers. Villagers are new, coffers we've seen in guilds before. Project cubes, these go on the projects to represent that you've bought them. We'll go ahead and get started with these mechanics. Projects, they are a thing. They exist in the kingdom. They're a landscape, so they don't take up a kingdom card slot, but you buy them. And basically what happens is you have a cube on them, and they say, have some trigger. When you trash a card other than with this, do something. You may trash a card from your hand. So like sewers basically means that each trash is doubled. Silos, at the start of your turn, discard any number of coppers revealed and draw that many cards. Consistency measure at the start of your turn. Some are a little bit more exotic. Innovation, when you gain an action card, once per turn you're able to play that action card, or even capitalism, extremely exotic. During your turns, actions become treasures. Projects, I don't know, they're not my favorite landscape type. There's events, ways, whatever, from other expansions, but they're pretty solid. The one complaint I have is that they're not that much different from kingdom cards. You buy a kingdom card, you get to get something out of it frequently. You buy a project, you get to get something out of it every turn. There's not a huge difference there. And so, they aren't the most novel thing ever in this landscape slot. That said, the ones that exist are pretty fun. I'm going to give it a B+. Coffers. So coffers, which were seen previously in guilds, are where, a coffer, you put a token on your coffer's mat, and then you can take the token off anytime during your turn, for +1 coin. So, this is a different way of giving you coins. Coffers in Renaissance are probably a little bit on the boring side. You get to have some introductions, like when you gain plus coffers. Guilds doesn't have any of that, but it kind of is the same thing. It's just, here's something that kind of gives a coin that you might be able to save for later. Here's something that gives 2 coins you might be able to save for later. Big deal. The projects do something. Pageant actually lets you directly save a coin that you didn't use for later. That's pretty cool. Guild Hall, when you gain a treasure, +1 coffers, Swashbuckler is actually really novel. It uses coffers for some other reason that we'll discuss a little bit later. I think the Guild's coffers is probably a little bit better here. That said, coffers are pretty fun, so, we're gonna give it a B. Alright, villagers. Similar to coffers, you have a villagers mat that you put coin tokens on. And you take the coin tokens off anytime during your action phase for +1 action, rather than +1 coin. So you get +1 action instead. There's a number of different ways that these happen. You can see there's some when gains. One shot, just get a whole bunch of villagers. Maybe it depends on what you trash. And then there's this patron and sculptor, which are kind of, we'll call them save of action for later. Patron most directly, gives you 1 villager, we'll call it terminally, where that villager can be used as an action later if you use it, if you stop playing actions now. Sculptor similarly if you gain a treasure. There are some projects that deal with them. Academy's very strong, gives you lots of villagers as you buy actions to be able to play it. Villagers, pretty fun. one of the things that's notable about them is that, like, a lot of the time when you're trying to draw in Dominion or draw cards, like, you'll play your terminal, draw a card, and you want to pair it with a villager, or pair it with a village, but, this makes you draw both of them at once. Villagers kind of smooth that out. You can play your smithy right away, and not have to worry about having this village with it, because you have this villager, so you can continue your turn afterwards. It ends up being pretty slick. I'm going to ding them a little bit just because, with it being pretty slick, maybe it makes things a little bit too easy. A lot of these are really strong cards for that reason. And so, it's nice to be able to do this thing, but maybe it makes it a little bit too easy on people. Like, you do want to have this game have some amount of space to have to work for it. So I'm giving this an A-. Artifacts. Artifacts are these sideways things. There's one of each of them, and what happens is that people can steal them from one another, and you try to kind of get them. There's 5 of these things, but only corresponds to 4 cards. Border Guard has 2 artifacts. So there's different things, like Flag Bearer, +1 card, Treasurer, +1 coin, Swashbuckler. This is where we were talking about coffers before. If you accumulate enough coffers and you play a Swashbuckler, you can take this treasure chest, which at the start of your buy phase gaining gold is pretty sweet. The problem is that of these different things, I'm gonna say, you do a lot of stealing back and forth seemingly for no reason. Like, Key's not gonna do anything if people are constantly stealing it. The ones on Border Guards don't really matter. Flag Bearer is kind of unpleasant to deal with. So really the only cool artifact is this treasure chest. I don't really love the mechanic to begin with, where, you're basically just doing this kind of basic thing to get something that matters a questionable amount. And on top of it, like, these 3 don't really do it for me. So I'm giving this a C-. Alright, looking at some of the components, Renaissance has 2 attacks. One is Old Witch. This is a cursor that maybe will allow people to trash a curse, and then Villain is a very, very weak discard attack. You can say that there is some other interaction with the artifacts, but we talked about how those are maybe not the most amazing thing ever. So I don't think we can really give Renaissance a pass for being light on the attacks. Villain's very weak. Old Witch is very, very strong, maybe a little bit too strong. So this isn't quite a fail, but it's definitely down there at a D. Draw. We want to be able to play lots of action cards that requires drawing. And so usually here we're looking for quantity over quality, because at the end of the day, who cares how you're drawing? If you have enough ways to do it, cool. I have these kind of separated out in different categories, but looking at this quantity, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 kingdom cards out of 25 is a little bit below the half we're usually looking for, but there are some projects that kind of make up for that. There's 4 different ones that will give you some amount of village, and so especially since some of these are very, very strong draw cards, and essentially maybe non-terminal in Lackey's Silk Merchant and these 3, I think it's a really good set for being able to draw stuff, and I'm giving this one an A. Alright, payload. What are the cool things you can do with your deck? Renaissance actually has a couple of explosives. Inventor especially, and Priest are both ones that can get you lots and lots of stuff in a turn. Priest coins wise, Inventor gains. Like Inventor, you play enough of these and suddenly you're gaining provinces with every Inventor play. It's a cost reducer. Patron can sometimes do it because of this reaction part. Different things will reveal Patron. Some things can reveal Patron, like a lot of them, like a shanty town from Intrigue, or a city quarter from Adventures. Just for example, I don't know that there's anything that's really a mass patron revealer in Renaissance itself. A couple different ways to gain treasures. Overall, like, you have these explosives, you have a couple ways to gain treasures, you have some plus buy in here, you have something that can give you a lot of coins, something that's cost reducing. There's a lot of diversity here, and really all of them are kind of fun things to work around. So I'm giving Renaissance an A in this category. All right. Looking at some of the extremes, high-end strength. We talked about villagers being one of the more powerful things, and here's 3 of the most powerful cards in all of Dominion: Lackey, Silk Merchant, Recruiter. You'll note that all of them have some kind of villager thing on them, and that's probably a lot of the reason why they're high in strength. Silk Merchant additionally has this coffers, but it's hard to explain why they're so strong, but they are. They're quite fun to play with. They lead to some really fast games, and also they lead to games that don't all look the same. At the end of the day, like, this is a draw card. This is draw and plus buy. This trashes and gives you village, but you do have to do other things with them. It can't just be, I'm going to get a bunch of Silk Merchants and that's going to be my deck. Like, you have to add other things to it. And so, these, as far as high-end strength goes, maybe they make things a little bit too easy, but, good cards do that. And so, I'm going to go ahead and give it an A here, just because you get that with the diversity of experience. On the low end, here's Scholar, here's Villain. These are not good cards. That said, you still do buy them quite a bit. Villain's definitely a little bit disappointing to have this attack and be like this only attack in Renaissance almost, and be this weak. Scholar's a draw to X that, just discard your hand plus 7 cards. You get to have a 7-card hand size with it. It's fine. They're pretty decent for the bottom end, but they're not amazing, so I'll give a B+ here. Most exciting card in the expansion is Silk Merchant. We talked about how strong it was. It's like, when you gain or trash this +1 coffers and +1 villager, well, you want to gain it a lot because this is cool, and you want to trash it because, like, it has this nice trash for benefit thing going on. It's very mechanically interesting. That said, it is maybe a little bit on the too strong side, and so, rather than give the A, I'm giving it an A-. Most unpleasant, I usually only put 1 thing here, but in this case I feel compelled to put 2 because I play with neither of these things. Flag Bearer is just overly unpleasant to be, doing a flag war back and forth for so much of the game for something so kind of meaningless. Cathedral is this project that is very strong. I think a lot of people do like this one. I don't like how it messes with your hand size. That said, I don't think either of these things, although I don't play with them, is like, this should be killed from the game. Like, I think there is something to be gained out of having them. I just don't play with them, so I'm giving it a D at best. Alright, some of this fluff stuff. Theme, it's supposed to be kind of around the Renaissance. There's some kind of artsy stuff, but not really. I'm giving this one a B. Artwork, there's a lot of pleasant artwork, but I think, it is depicting like cityscapes and whatnot. My favorite arts are always the nature scenes, so I'm giving it a B here too. Renaissance, everything is easy with this expansion. You can't really complain there. The vibe is an A. Put it all together, you get a 2.99 after we do our appropriate weights. It's a high-end expansion. It's pretty decent. I think it ends up being somewhere in the middle by now. There's been so many good expansions since, but it's a good expansion. Should you buy Renaissance? I mean, absolutely. Like, it's something that you'll love to play with.